Hi, I'm Dante Stevenson. This is Jimmy Casey. This is Anthony Parisi, and this is Eric Hernandez. And the reason for this project was to develop a plan to improve the city of Chicago. In order to improve the city of Chicago, we found that improvements need to be made on the state, county, and municipal levels. This is because the levels are all connected and the state laws are needed for the authority to reform and punish criminal activities. This is our plan.
Mayor Emanuel, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. Governor Quinn, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. Mayor Daley, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law.
When can we get out?
Never.
It's meant to be a comical representation of our plan. However, this clip carries an important message. In order for our city to function more efficiently, there needs to be deep reform within the government and systems of our state. The problems that we found in our city, such as pollution, crime, education, debt, and transportation, can all be attributed to corrupt and greedy politicians and government systems like the political machine. We need first to create term limitations on political positions throughout the state to prevent politicians from getting too much power, such as Mayor Daley and Michael Madigan. In order for any improvements to occur in the city, money is needed. By reforming the governmental system, money will be more readily available to improve.
Some main reasons why the city of Chicago has so much debt are poor management of money, bad contracts with businesses, and selfish politicians. With our plan, we would mainly focus on pension reform. Politicians and other workers would be required to work a certain amount of years before they could qualify for pension benefits. The voters would vote on the number of years until you receive it. We would also lessen the size of the city council. We found that New York has 51 councilmen for a population of 8 million, while Chicago has 50 councilmen for a population of roughly 2 to 3 million people. By cutting back on the number of council members, not only would we be saving money by not paying these salaries, but by not paying those aldermen's pensions. Besides cutting back on the size of the government, we would limit the power of politicians to award contracts for jobs throughout the city. We would also set term restrictions that would limit politicians from gaining too much power by making bad contracts and deals in the best interest of themselves and not the taxpayers. Some bad contracts that have lost the city millions of dollars are Mayor Daley's plan to sell the parking meters to a private business and to order recycling bins for management. The parking meter contract was sold for $2 to $3 billion lower than it should have, and it's costing taxpayers more money to reimburse the company for terminated meters. The money saved from the pension reform, smaller government, and more planned contracts will allow the city to hire more police officers, give more money to schools, and allow for more physical changes in the city.
The money that we save from pension reforms can be used to hire more police officers. These new officers will not only complete the police task force, but also help reduce the extremely high crime rates. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, police officers are leaving because of pension issues. Our pension reforms would allow police officers to be happy with their jobs and keep them from retiring for a longer period of time. Due to the shortage of police officers, Chicago has seen a 22% increase in homicides since last year. In addition to hiring more police officers, we would also have uniform guidelines for punishment of criminal activity. This would include making examples of corrupt politicians. An example of a political cover-up is when Mayor Daley's nephew was involved in a manslaughter that was apparently covered up for several years. By enforcing laws, no matter a person's financial and political status, this would prevent future corruption and create a more efficient form of government. Also, we would restrict officials to hold office or run for office if they are convicted of a felony. This would prevent higher-ranking officials from appointing their supporters and friends to these vacated offices. Lastly, the money that we save through pension reforms and taxes on the lottery, the Chicago Police Department and public school systems can create more extracurricular activities and programs to keep students and kids off streets and participating in constructive programs.
The educational reform, revenue generated from the Illinois lottery is not always used for Chicago public schools and other public institutions. We will prevent politicians from being able to access the revenue and use it for other problems in the city. Since Illinois and Chicago have such a large amount of debt, this causes the city to cut back on schools and teachers. If all the money from the lottery was taken out of the hands of the politicians and used as it was first intended, the city could increase the number of educators and improve the quality of education in Chicago public schools.
I was in charge of investigating the problems that the city has with pollution and transportation. First, we would remove waste management from the control of aldermen. This would prevent aldermen from using this system for political gains. The city has problems with pollution because the services of the Department of Streets and Sanitation are limited due to financial restrictions. Mayor Daley funded a plan to implement recycling bins into the city's waste management. However, the plan was not well organized, the bins were not used, and it cost the city $1 million. It is ill-advised plans like this that cost taxpayers money and force the city to cut back services. The road and bridge conditions in Chicago are deteriorating. The process for repairing potholes is very complicated and a very time-consuming process. The reconstruction of these roads and bridges can be privatized in order to save the city large amounts of money and time. If the city developed contracts that were well planned and based off of the quality of work rather than the personal financial gains of aldermen and other politicians, the city could save money. The city would not have to worry about compensating workers for overtime. Also, the contracts would be in the private sector, which could mean lower costs because of competition among businesses. There would also need to be a program for evaluation of the services provided by these companies in order to warrant future contracts. Lastly, reconstruction projects would have strict time limits to ensure that the private companies were diligently working and producing a quality product.